Unboxing! I don't do these. So, if you don't like it, I won't do any more. But if you do like it, I will do more. I got some new brushes. Because my existing brushes, their tips have all gone. They're really difficult to paint with now. So, I have heard good things about these Brokentoad brushes. They're the Mk2s. And yeah, let's get to unboxing them. So a nice box made of cardboard, a lid. There are brushes inside the box. And they're in a packet of plastic. And laying on top a cloth loft insulation type filling, which I frankly don't care about. It's a nice box. I'm never going to use it. In the bin it goes. Okay. Here are the brushes. There's 4 brushes. This is a set, and I believe it cost me about £25 plus shipping. You get a 2, a 1, a 0, and a 3-0. 3-0 being the smallest brush I have ever purchased. I usually only ever use a 0 at the smallest. So we'll see how this goes. I probably won't use it, to be honest. But it was cheaper to get all 4 of these brushes than it was to get 3 of them individually. So let's crack this open and get the brushes stuck to the glue, obviously. They're Kolinsky sable. Did I mention that already? I think I probably did. They're individually a little bit cheaper than Winsor & Newton Series 7s, which is what I normally use. And we have some Caring for Your Miniature Series brush. We have brush tips. Never use your good brush to remove paint from a pot or mix some thin paint on your palette, as this can damage the tip. Which is how I always damage the tip, because I don't take care of my brushes very well. Never allow paint to gather more than halfway along the bristles from the tip. Don't do that. Rinse the brush regularly in cold water, during painting to help avoid paint buildup. Always replace the cap after working, and I read that as stare the brush. Store the brush with the tip pointing down. This will stop liquids or debris from accumulating in the ferrule, and stop the tip from distorting or misshaping, prolonging the life of the brush. I don't do that. I always lose the caps. Usually within seconds of getting the brush. So let's have a look at these. They are quite nice looking. They're a different colour to all my other brushes, so I'll be able to tell them apart quite easily. That's good. So all the caps are on. And so yeah, they're paintbrushes, all right. So that's the number 2, number 1, 0, and 3-0. So let's do a quick length compare of the number 2 to a Series 7 number 2. Boop. So there's the end. The Series 7 is a little bit of a shorter handle, but I don't think that's going to make much of a difference, quite frankly. Ooh, look at that. Now I know this Series 7 brush is quite old and a bit knackered, but already we can see that the Series 7 has got a much bigger belly on their number 2 than these Brokentoad brushes. So the Series 7 is probably would have hold more paint in its belly than these ones will. Looks like it would have been about the same length. Hang on, let's get that. Yeah, it looks like the Series 7 would have also been a little bit longer back when its tip was formed properly, but this one will no longer hold a tip anymore. So that's interesting. The Brokentoad brush is slightly smaller than the Series 7 where it counts. That's 3-0, I don't have anything to compare that to. Size 1s. So here's the size 1s. Line up the brushy part. Take the cap off because we can't see. Same here. The number 1 Winsor & Newton has got a fatter belly than the Brokentoad and looks close to the same length. My number 1's holding its point a little bit better than that number 2 was. So again, bigger belly on the Series 7s. Number 0. The 0. So again, same story here. Now I can still paint to some degree with my size 0 Winsor & Newton. It's not as precise as I'd like it. It's definitely not holding a point, and within a few strokes it just loses it. But this, yeah, the belly on these is much, much smaller. So that is going to be interesting when it comes to things like glazing. And I don't use my expensive brushes for base coats anyway. I either airbrush the base coat or I use a cheap brush. I mean, this number 2 Series 7, that's it. This only has a life of base coating now. And this even more broken one, that's pretty much just used for washes and stirring paint. So that's it. That's the brushes so far. I won't know exactly what I think of them until I've done a bit of painting. I'm going to paint up some Deathwatch, do some edge highlighting and some scratches, see how they hold their tip when used in anger. And yeah, I will get back to you. For you, it's a jump cut. For me, it's about an hour later. I have done some painting. I have a conclusion. I will show you the model first. So this is Deathwatch Space Marine. There is a lot of edge highlighting to do on a Deathwatch Space Marine. And this was all done with the Brokentoad brushes. This guy was done with my old Winsor & Newton brushes a few days ago. There is a difference. Mostly, this guy needed less touch-up work on around the edge highlights. And this is because these are incredibly precise brushes. Just super, super precise. I didn't use the 3-0, but I did use the 1, the 2, and the 0. I mostly used the 0. And there's a reason for that. The 2 is too long. It doesn't have any snap. The point kind of flops all over the place. It's very good at doing very straight, long lines, but they're all very good at doing very straight, long lines, actually. But it's a little bit too long. It doesn't have any kind of spring in its point, so it doesn't snap back to being straight, essentially. It's a bit like dragging a wet cloth over a surface. It's if you're dragging it in a straight line, it's incredibly straight. But the moment you try and use the point to like draw something, or do any freehand, or go around a corner, it feels like the tip is like lagging behind where the body of the brush is. You don't get that with Winsor & Newton Series 7s. They're nice and stiff, so they've got a little spring to their point. The 0, I liked quite a lot, actually. This is probably going to be my new edge highlighting brush, but it's probably only going to be used for that. I do not think it's a very good general purpose brush. These are so precise, they're very, very good for edge highlighting specifically. Doing very thin lines and scratches, they're very good at that. But, say, glazing, they don't have enough strength in order to use the side of the brush to move material, move paint. So just to use an example, doing this with a Winsor & Newton brush, the brush barely changes shape at all when there's any paint on it. But these Brokentoad brushes, they kind of lag like this. The tip drags behind the rest of the brush. So for glazing, I can't recommend them at all. But for very fine details, these scratches are some of the finest lines I've ever painted. So I'm impressed by that. And I didn't touch up as much as I needed, as much as I would if this was a competition piece. But also, I barely had to touch it up at all in order to reach tabletop standard. Or, well, I guess it's tabletop plus, isn't it? I've only done the one leg. The rest of it I just did the base edge highlighting. I also found that they were a little bit too long and too thin. Focus. To be able to edge highlight an area with a lot of very close together edges, like on the backpack here. Again, a stiffer brush would actually be more useful there. So I wouldn't recommend these brushes over Winsor & Newton Series 7s because of that main problem. They're just too thin. They're too narrow to be a good general purpose brush. Get one of them, like get a size 0 to do fine detail work, but you only need one. Right. Yeah, because the brush is so thin. Oh, now you've decided to adjust your exposure. Okay. The paint is drying very quickly. So my normal paint thinning, it's not going well. It's drying so quickly on the brush, I'm having to clean the brush every second stroke, essentially. Whereas the Winsor & Newtons, I can maintain, 5 or 6 strokes before needing to clean the brush in this heat. And currently it is like 26 degrees in here. So this is my conclusion. Winsor & Newton Series 7. They're the better all-purpose brush. They cost more, and they're worth more, quite frankly. You can do with these everything that you can do with a Brokentoad, and you can do more with them. So these Brokentoad Series 2 Mark 2s, I mean, if you get given some, don't give them away. They're great. And I wouldn't recommend spending the 25 quid on the box set like I did. I would just recommend get yourself a size 0 Brokentoad. They're very, very good for painting scratches. They're very good for doing edge highlighting, as long as it's not in a crowded area. But in terms of general painting, if I had to recommend one brush to paint miniatures with, I'd say get yourself a Winsor & Newton size 1, and you'd be good. Whereas I cannot say the same of these brushes. So there we go. That's my review of Brokentoad brushes. I'm going to keep using these. You'll see these crop up anytime I do edge highlighting on the channel. But I'm going to go and buy some new Winsor & Newton brushes now myself. Spend some more money. So click those adverts. Follow those affiliate links. I need the cash to get more brushes. Bye.